Axe.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Bridon League. This is going to be the second to last game of the day. BBC going up against Little Busters Forever or Xantic. I honestly don't see the connection between Xantic and Little Busters, but we're going to be calling them probably both throughout this entire game. I'm Mike Loris, going to be joined by MRP one more time. And man, this is going to be an interesting game. Little Busters impressed me quite a bit previously, but BBC are so strong right now. It's going to be hard for Little Busters to win up against them.
Yeah, BBC looking very good today, and it's something I feel like we've been saying game in and game out every time Little Busters Forever comes out against one of these higher placed teams in this tournament. It's like, we'll see if they're real after this matchup. But they beat up X Game today, who beat up their group. X Game, I think it was Group C, absolutely dominated everybody, albeit not looking super impressive today. They've gone 0-3, but both these teams currently undefeated in this second group stage. Little Busters Forever 1-0, BBC 2-0. So we'll see who takes the crown for today after this one. Definitely so if BBC wins. No one going to catch up to them at least today for that coveted first seed in the double elimination playoffs.
And we have ourselves the start of a draft. ZJK going to get his Ancient Apparition banned out from him. He's been performing pretty well with that hero previously. So respect ban there, and then a mirrored respect ban of Padrinho's Broodmother going to be kicked out by Little Busters. This is going to mean that Axe Vengeful Spirit going to be picks for Xantic. That's a pretty nice combination. You amplify the damage of the counter helixes with the wave, and you'll be able to kill off people pretty easily with that combo. But BBC have picked up a very early Omni Knight, so it's a pretty good hero versus Axe, especially that Purify. Picking it up this early, though, not really sure if that's worth it.
Yeah, definitely so. Maybe Little Busters Forever tipping their hand a bit in that they're going to go full-scale physical damage. They already have the Helix there, plus the minus armor from the Venge and the Vengeful Spirit Aura. So I guess somewhat of a safety pick from BBC here. Works pretty well with the Troll as well, who often builds into that BKB. So the Repel is nice, of course, as you mentioned. Purify good against heroes like Axe, who do want to get into close quarters with their opponent. But yeah, not sure if it's worth expending an early pick like this on it. Don't know if LB4E we're going to pick it up themselves. I haven't seen them run it all that much in the tournament, but HeflaTV has played it in the last couple days, so maybe a bit of a pick tonight coming out from BBC. Abaddon ban comes out from them, as well as the Dazzle. A little bit interesting to see those bans come out, as I'm not sure LB4E would have picked up a Dazzle. There's no, quasi burst coming out yet from BBC. Is always nice with the Axe. Get off a couple more helixes, perhaps get yourself out of the engagement, a taunt to keep yourself up. But they are expending bans heavily on the supports from BBC here, so perhaps a little bit privy to the play, as you mentioned, of ZJK and HeflaTV thus far.
That's a fine way to go. You don't always have to target the cores, and you could force the enemies to pick up some rather weird supports, but they have options right now. Like a Witch Doctor is a perfectly safe option if Little Busters want to grab that one. It'll be fine for them. And Little Busters banning out the Disruptor as well, taking that away from Levi. Very comfortable hero player matchup there for BBC. Slark also going to get the boot out. So Little Busters are looking to have a pretty safe opening right now with the Vengeful Spirit Axe, and they can really go in any direction they want at the moment. Expecting probably the Troll Warlord to go towards the mid lane. I haven't seen BBC play Omni Knight in a very long time. In fact, it might have just been when they're with their previous lineup that they played it last that I saw. I don't really know if they're going to be laning this as a core Omni Knight, but a support Omni Knight is perfectly viable if they want to go for that. For now, Little Busters, though, going to get even more initiation on the board with the Puck.
Yeah, definitely saw a little bit of a tempo control there from the Puck, some magic damage burst as well. If you get that Waning Rift off on Omni Knight, should bode well for LB4E's ability to take some of these engagements here. So they're going to have some early initiation power from the Blink, from the Axe, as well as that Puck there, and definitely worth a pickup this early on. As you mentioned, they are expending some of the support, some of the bans on supports from BBC, but already having a Vengeful Spirit, one of the best supports in the game, there still are a lot of options for LB4E. Interestingly enough, BBC gonna opt for a Timber Saw here, so pure damage, pretty nice into Axe, who is very tanky up against the physical damage innately of the Troll Warlord, so that's not bad versus him. They do lack a little bit of lockdown, however, on the BBC side.
Well, Timbersaw is one of the trademark heroes of BBC, and it slowly is becoming more and more so as Mass Carry is constantly dominating games with that Timber. So he will have now a couple more answers. Little Busters, all their heroes have some way to deal with this Timbersaw through silences or just hardcore stuns with the call or the magic missile. BBC will be, having to be on the defensive in that regard. Omni Knight with the repel, though, hopefully for BBC, going to throw a wrench in all of those plans. But Timbersaw by no means is going to be getting away with this. BBC, they're not going to get away with this Timbersaw pick scot-free. They have to play around quite a few things, and that's really the price you pay for picking up a hero that you're comfortable with over a hero that is going to be quote-unquote good against the enemy heroes, is that you are going to be counterpicked, and Timbersaw is a hero that does have many of those counterpicks.
Yeah, definitely so. So lots of ways to deal with him, as you mentioned. Ancient Seal, Waning Rift, a couple of hard disables coming out from the Axe, and the Vengeful Spirit. And you can even cast those kind of mid-Timber Chain cast animations, so they are really reliable to bring down this Timber. But as you mentioned, Massacre, very capable hands with that Timbersaw. But already, LB4E's draft very strong thus far. They could use a hard right-clicker here. Will sacrifice the Axe's farm, presumably a bit, or perhaps the Puck if they put him in the off lane. But either way, very strong roaming support and safe lane support duo in the Skywrath Vengeful Spirit. Concussive Shot to close the distance. Ancient Seal to buff up that magic missile damage, and more often than not will garner you a kill. But BBC gonna go hard towards that sustain lineup, and this is perhaps why they banned that AA out early. They're gonna pick up the Necrophos in addition to their Omni Knight.
So all these heroes that BBC are picking up are very vulnerable to silences or any disable at all. Necrophos rather fragile, and he's going to need his Omni Knight to do double duty. But the chances of Omni Knight actually wandering into a fight and not getting silenced or stunned is getting slimmer and slimmer with every single pick that Little Busters make. So it's a interesting way for BBC to progress with this draft. This is almost going to guarantee the Omni Knight is into the support role, and BBC are going to be looking for another support hero right now. It's potentially a little bit greedy, but at the same time, like, they have a lot of early game for BBC. Just their lanes are going to be the real problem, just because Omni Knight support is not able to pressure lanes at all. That's just not what he does. He just tries to make sure your allies don't die. I'm expecting a Troll Warlord mid Timbersaw off Necrophos safe lane with Omni Knight +1 for BBC, but Little Busters, they will be able to punish that pretty easily. Skywrath Mage, Vengeful Spirit, one of the more dangerous roaming duos in the game, especially if you're able to go towards the softer targets like Necrophos or Troll.
Yeah, I think you touched on the key point, which is the punishability of the lanes from BBC and the predictability of the lanes with their draft thus far. So expect an early fighting capable hero like a Gyrocopter, a Wraith King, a Sven, something like that coming out for LB4E. The waveform, definitely a nice early nuke for them, will allow them to scale later into the game as well. So I definitely do expect some aggression from the safe lane try, or even aggressive try from LB4E. They can center that around the Axe and even put this Puck in a one-on-one safe lane matchup with the Morphling in the mid. That seems like a very strong configuration for their lanes. BBC going to round out their lineup with the Lion, so offers them a little bit more disable there up against some of these squishier heroes like the Puck, who do rely on their elusivity.
Lion, pretty good versus Puck, pretty good versus Morphling, and at the very least, BBC need a hero to actually provide some sort of early game lane presence. Lion isn't exactly the best, but their alternatives weren't exactly there, as Vengeful Spirit, Skywrath on the other side, other support heroes that BBC would have rather liked to pick up in any given situation were banned out. So Lion is probably not exactly on the top of the list of heroes that they would want to pick for that role, but and you don't really have that many choices, so you take what you can get. Either way, Lion is going to be a reasonable hero up against what Xantic have. And, well, BBC, maybe they're going to get off to a really aggressive early game start. Maybe this Lion's going to set up for some Purifies from the Omni Knight. Who knows what's going to happen right now. But either way, we are in the game. And, of course, we're going to start with a pause because Little Busters have been starting with pauses every single time. But that's fine, because it gives us time to introduce the teams. On the BBC side, currently 2-0 in the final group. We got Massacre playing the Timbersaw yet again. Levi's going to be playing the Omni Knight. Bridon on the Necrophos. Miracle playing the mid lane Troll Warlord. That leaves Yapzor on the Lion. Yeah, very strong lineup for BBC, but I got to favor LB4E's a little bit here. Very comfortable over on the Radiant side is FN on this Axe. He's been playing it almost the entire tournament. Akashi, usually in the mid, is going to pick up this Puck, and we will have Bad playing up on that Morphling. That leaves Ajisetave or Ajisetave on the Skywrath Mage, and ZJK picking up that Vengeful Spirit. Alright, so Xantic, they have a lot of late game power now, given their Morphling pickup.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with this Morphling is that as powerful as he is, it is difficult to overcome the power levels of a Necrophos with a Troll Amplification, with the mid-late game power of an Aghanimed Timbersaw Chakram. So, as powerful as Xantic are in the late game, it's really going to be in the earlier stages where they're going to be looking to hit their strides, and at that point, the pressure falls towards the Axe and the Puck, as those two heroes, of course, would like to get kills before they get the Blink Dagger, but will be fully turned on once those Blink Daggers are up. And BBC, they don't really have any mirrored situation there. Blink Dagger on Lion is nice to have, but it's not really a huge trigger item, as you might not just get to that point ever in the game. It just might be one of those games.
Yeah, and they have the swap as well to bring in targets to a lot of this toolkit that is pretty good in close proximity. The call even into the Mystic Flare, pretty under-noticed combo, and definitely very potent there as well. So yeah, Bad gonna have to find some traction on this Morphling. One thing for the LB4E lineup is that they really don't have any ideal Diffusal Blade builders, so we'll see if they end up picking one of those up. GA should be pretty darn good versus their lineup. It will allow Akashi and the Skywrath Mage to do a little bit more work, but one repel on a very significant target should be able to mitigate most of the damage coming out from LB4E as long as this GA is off cooldown. So look for LB4E to take mediocre engagements while GA is up, and then look to respawn and go right back in as that cooldown is in tow.
GA is always going to be a big problem, but the bigger problem is going to be the fact that a Necrophos with a Repel, or a Troll with Repel, and to a lesser extent a Timbersaw with a Repel. These are all really dangerous threats, though Xantic do have the call to kind of deal with that. As, crowd control, you're going to be doing a lot less damage with their very heavy magical damage lineup. Axe and Morphling will still be doing damage. Later on, Morphling will be fine, even given the Repel, but the Repel is going to be, in my mind, the most troublesome thing coming out from the BBC's Omni Knight, and not to mention the fact that there's also a Hex. So there are quite a few tools that BBC have to deal with that of Xantic, and well, it's going to be up to Xantic to try to overcome that early on. As we said before, FN has been playing this Axe quite a bit, so he knows what he's doing on this hero. It is possible that none of what we just said is really going to be relevant, because the Axe completely takes over and for the most part just wins the game for Xantic in 20 minutes, something like that. It's rare, but it's possible, just given the hero and given his FN's proficiency with the hero. Who knows what's going to happen in that situation. If it does come to be like that, then, man, BBC, they just need to hope that their Timbersaw gets big enough to contest the Axe. But it might not be happening, especially if the Axe goes up against Timbersaw. It's a rather even lane, actually. It's a very fragile lane on both ends, though.
Yeah, definite kill potential if there's a misstep from either side. And as you mentioned or alluded to before, both players very competent in FN and Massacre. On the Timbersaw, a lot more, though, in this game is available from the LB4E lineup to deal with Massacre than is available for BBC to deal with FN. As you mentioned, that Berserker's Call piercing through the Repel is going to be pretty useful. Of course, they do have the Hex there from Lion and some Disable from the Earth Spike as well. Even the Reaper Scythe to keep him in place. And he is an innately tanky hero, so a little bit susceptible to that, but Massacre going to be hard pressed to find himself jumping around these engagements with free roams. So we'll see how well LB4E deal with this Timbersaw, and if they're able to, as you mentioned earlier, they expended kind of a lot in the draft for BBC, picking up this Timbersaw over actually picking up a good counter on paper to what LB4E opened with.
And there's a chance that Xantic take their Morphling +2 support heroes as an aggressive tri-lane, put Akashi in the mid lane, put FN down towards the bottom lane, and if that is going to be the case, then Necrophos isn't really the worst in that situation, but he's also not too spectacular. The Omni Knight's going to be hard pressed to defend, and really the offensive capabilities of Xantic vastly outweighing the offensive capabilities of BBC. So I would like to see Xantic lane their heroes as such: 3 heroes up towards top, Axe down bottom, Akashi mid, and I mean, BBC, they have a little bit of flexibility in how they approach their lanes, but let's be honest here, the Troll Warlord is probably going to be going mid 90% of the time, and you're going to leave Massacre alone as that Timbersaw just so he get to a point where his Chakram is going to be online. So Xantic, they can punish these lanes in BBC, and I think in 2 out of those 3 lanes, Xantic are going to be definite favorites to win, and over towards the mid lane, we're just going to be Puck versus Troll. That's a rather even lane, so it sounds pretty good to me. If I'm Xantic, I'll be happy with those odds.
Yeah, and I think that will be the laning configuration. Bad, usually the off-lane player for the side of LB4E, so it looks like it will be an aggressive tri-lane, or at least I wouldn't see them send that Morphling alone. So at the very least, it will be a solo safe lane Morph with Akashi in the mid and the aggressive tri-sender around FN, but they usually do give farm priority over to FN's Axe as he is very capable on that hero. So probably will be the one you mentioned, and hopefully we do get this game underway now. Looks like we will have a resume.
All right, about friggin' time. It's hopefully going to be the last pause of the game and the last pause of the day, but that's probably just me being a little bit hopeful. Either way, both sides going to be loading out into their lanes, and, well, for right now, Levi's going to be joining Mass Carry down towards the bottom lane. Timbersaw can get some value out of the fact that he will be able to, take the early fights with an early repel or a little bit of extra health from Purify, but Levi won't really be helping this lane all too much. And Omni Knight, in general, whenever you're playing him as a support hero, he needs to be pulling or getting a lot of kills, and this is not a lane to get a lot of kills, and it's not a lane for pulling either, so I would expect Levi to leave this lane alone to Mass Carry.
Yeah, he really should, and as you mentioned, Omni Knight definitely reliant on finding levels. Not so much farm, but certainly levels, and especially out of a support role can be fairly underwhelming if he's not able to get those up. And yeah, as you mentioned earlier on in the draft, they're probably expending a little bit too much of their resources towards Massacre already, picking him up into what is not the most ideal situation for him. So giving him over Levi's Omni Knight as well should be pretty detrimental to their ability to scale very well in this one, and will be soaking some XP for him. And FN really shouldn't be worried about it, but it looks like they will posture up defensively from the side of LB4E, and we'll actually have Akashi in the off lane. So it's one of the configurations we mentioned earlier in the draft, but I feel like it's a bit underwhelming from the side of LB4E and not really taking advantage of their early game potency.
Well, they're going to be running a jungle axe, it seems, and Skywrath Mage with the Null Talisman opening usually does indicate that he's going to take some sort of core role. Otherwise, you just buy, the more cost-effective items and the branches and whatnot. Is it really going to be a dual lane mid for Xantic? Okay, well, with the Axe's loadout, he had a lot of regeneration, expecting a brawl. Timbersaw doesn't have quite as much and doesn't have ring of protection either, so Stout Shield not going to help him too much. If it does end up being a 2v2 lane, this is actually really weird given the item pickups of Xantic. It's not the worst way to lane this, but over towards the bottom lane, Venge and Axe should have quite an edge versus the Timbersaw and Omni Knight. And over towards the mid lane, Miracle is going to do what he can, but there's not much that he can do when he's constantly barraged by these arcane bolts. So this is actually a very interesting way for Xantic to lane this, and their puck isn't really going to be hurt by this too much, as the Lion by himself can't pressure the puck out of lane solo. So this is actually going to work in such a way that Xantic are going to be winning on all three lanes, or at least they should be winning on all three lanes.
I think you touched upon the key point there, and that's the fact that Akashi can't really be punished too heavily until this line gets at least a level up in both Spike and Hex here. So I feel like that's where the greed comes into play, and that's where it certainly is warranted from Xantic. FN going to stand up in lane just by himself, and Pull's going to be committed here. Already a stack being pulled up by ZJK, and they'll be able to find some farm on their Venge as well as their Axe here without any contest.
Is under attack.
And FN taking a couple of hammer blows from the Omni Knight. You can see how much it actually mattered. With the Stout Shield and the Ring of Protection, he's going to stay at full HP for the most part in this lane. And because they do have a ranged support hero here in the form of Vengeful Spirit Mass Carry, probably going to have to go for a little bit more reactive armor. You would love to get extra aggressive builds, but he needs that armor to survive against the Axe. It's just that simple. Levi can only do so much at protecting that Timbersaw, and hell, Levi has to worry about his own life as well. If he gets caught in a call, then that could be very quickly the death of the Omni Knight. FN really doesn't need the help of the Vengeful Spirit here. Melee versus melee matchups for Axe are generally going to be won, especially when there's two melee heroes on the other end, and especially when both of those two melee heroes are strength heroes. Axe can do this all by himself, and it will be very easily done. Yaps are up towards top lane, can be chased down by a hasted Skywrath Mage. Will find himself a corner where he's potentially a little bit safe. Spike out, he's going to survive at 9 HP, looking for a Hex, will get it, but it's not going to matter because Skywrath Mage is already going to draw that blood. Now with the rest of the haste rune, he will book it back towards the mid lane. A nice rotation out from the Skywrath Mage, and killing off probably the easiest target on BBC throughout the entire stage of the game.
Yeah, very nice curveball thrown here from LB4E, the way of BBC, and they look a little bit out of position in these lanes. They will TP back the Lion to the bot lane and perhaps look to accrue an advantage here, 3 versus 2, but looks like he's going to wrap around in the jungle and look for something here. A little bit unfortunate there for the Skywrath. He actually missed the concussive shot as he was rotating up the stairs there, and unfortunately they had to dive a bit under the tower, but still finding that first blood. Very nice usage of that haste room, and we'll see where the Skywrath looks to offer his services hereafter.
Bottom lane, they're going to start on FN. Lion coming in, has a Hex and a level 1 Spike. Timber Chain forward, lots of damage onto FN. It should be enough to get the kill, and it will be. Magic Missile from the Venge just a little bit too late, and even if it was a little bit earlier, pretty sure the Axe would have been chased down either way with those Timber Chains. So BBC making it now a full-on tri-lane, and it's not really the lane configuration that I think is the strongest for them right now, but YapzOr is going to be playing a very heavily nomadic role, as once you get level 2 on Lion, you're able to actually do things for the team. Level 1 Lion is really, really terrible. Hex is good, but you really need that extra disable, so over towards the mid lane he's going to try to go, but Miracle is still having a pretty rough time versus the combination of Morphling and Skywrath Mage, but all things considered, he's not doing too terribly. Like, he's keeping even with the Morphling, and this is a 1v2 lane we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely so. So interesting there. And BBC are looking to deal with this a lot better after that rotation from the Lion. So we'll look for them to find a bit more on Massacre here. And that kill on FN is big because it won't allow him to pump his chest out as he was. He's going to have to walk back towards lane and isn't quite as confident as he once was. Does pick up the full Tranquils now, though, so should be more than fine to be sustained in this lane, even without the presence of ZJK.
Levi is going to get the 4-minute rune challenge, grabs an invis, is also going to repel himself for whatever reason. Boots on the Skywrath Mage though, and you're never going to catch up to him, so don't really know why Levi and YapzOr are even trying. They're going to have to worry maybe about their bottom lane, which Xantic have actually made into a full-on defensive tri-lane at this point. Levi's going to be privy to the fact, but he's going to get sentryed up. Magic Missile is going to be dodged by the invis, actually. Call is also going to miss. Oh my god, Omni Knight is so freaking lucky to be alive. Just got out of that sentry range. And if it was a little bit slower, it would have been a kill. In the meantime, because Skywrath Mage has left the Morphling alone, YapzOr is going to pull the trigger, and together with Miracle, they'll kill off the Morphling and keep all of their heroes alive in the process.
Yeah, so unfortunate for LB4E bottom lane, and they lose their Morphling just to add salt to the wound. A little bit of chip damage going to be committed into this tier 1 as well. We'll have the Skywrath Mage rotate in towards mid, but he needs to be careful not to feed over to Miracle. Bridon diving deep in the off lane. He's not going to be in range, though, for that Reaper Scythe. Needed a hit or two more before being able to bring down Akashi.
Yeah, a lot of damage regardless going towards the puck. I'm pretty sure if he was a little bit closer, he could have scythed for the stun and then pulsed, and then the scythe would have landed. It's a very delicate situation. You don't want to scythe for nothing, and puck is usually going to survive that. So Akashi going to be fine right now, but still Bridon, he's near the top of the last hit chart. In fact, it's going to be the Timbersaw on top. Everyone on BBC, in fact, on top of the last hit chart. So BBC doing pretty well in the last hit department across all of their lanes, even though Xantic technically have a lot more power there. Seems like they're just not getting as much. I mean, it's a narrow loss in the Axe versus Timbersaw game, but I'm really surprised at how Miracle is handling this mid lane. Versus 2, it's really hard for the Troll Warlord, but he's making it work, and he's actually holding on to 1 kill. He's going to get dove now by bad magic arcane bolts are going to fly, and Miracle does not have a bottle with him. This bolt is going to kill him off. Teleportation support coming in. Omni Knight a little bit too late, though, for that heal. And, well, Bad and Ajistave are going to be walking away from that, and they will be fine. Meantime, Akashi and YapzOr are going to be fighting over the 6-minute rune. Double damage grabbed by the Lion. And Akashi's got to watch out now. Fortunately for him, there's no mana on the Lion, but either way, 2-2 is the score now.
Yeah, good old Caster's Curse. You praise someone for doing very well in their lane, and they die immediately thereafter. Levi going to look to find perhaps a little bit of farm in this mid lane on the Omni Knight. That will be nice for him to get close to that level 6, but rotation's already in from Bad, and the Skywrath Mage has probably been scouted out here by the Dire Observer Ward. Bottom lane, they are going to jump in. FN going to pick up Massacre and the last counter Helix. Going to finish him off, so once again, FN accruing an advantage here. Mid lane, they go in Ancient Seal onto Miracle. The Purification is there onto Bad. Whirling Axes are going to hit. That's the range for him, but not going to slow him enough. Rotation's in from Akashi. Orb is going to hit. He will be able to jaunt to the high ground, but he's just going to look to chase this down. Repel's going to be there to stifle off that arcane bolt damage, and bottling up is Miracle. He'll be just fine for the time being. No further rotations in, though, so should stifle any aggression thus far in the mid lane.
Killing off the Morphling is going to be damn near impossible for BBC without the presence of their Lion here, and catching up to the Skywrath Mage to kill him is going to be the hard part. But once you actually do land a disable, any sort of slow, then killing him off is going to be a cakewalk thereafter, but not going to happen with just an Omni Knight and a Troll. Those two heroes are just not able to catch up and then lock down and then subsequently kill any of those targets. So BBC, they're going to be slightly on the defensive over in the mid lane, while YapzOr is currently off the map. He's going to be helping out Bridon up towards the top lane, going to be getting himself a little bit closer to that level 6. I feel like this is a little bit of wasted potential here in YapzOr, and that he has been doing so well with his very aggressive roaming that he could be doing a little more. Over towards mid lane, Miracle is going to be dove by Bad. Man fight in the mid lane. Bash is there, but Miracle doesn't quite realize it. Levi is going to sit here and bait. Purify is there, and Bad needs to get out of here. He's going to strength morph up quite a bit. Whirling Axe is not going to be lethal. A couple more throws of the axes, still not lethal. 40 HP, and the Morphling is going to survive. Arcane Bolt onto Miracle. That should not get a kill. With one more right click, it might actually. The right click misses, and Miracle is going to live. Now Levi catching up to HeflaTV with that degen aura. YapzOr closing in fast, but not fast enough. Decisive is going to let the Skireth Mage disengage. YapzOr a little bit too slow. Unless the Skireth wants back in, he shouldn't want back in. Miracle is going to limp away from that fight. Has a full bottle charge, or a full bottle to drink from. But he was so close to killing that Morphling, but so far.
Yeah, and that miss uphill from the Skireth Mage also means the life of Miracle is safe for the time being. But FN, retreating to the jungle as Axes tend to do, will find his Blink Dagger now. It gives a little bit of space over to Massacre on the Timbersaw. He's found a full set of Arcane Boots and his Magic Wand as well, 600 gold. With this Blink Dagger at 8.5 minutes in will be certainly very influential to the game hereafter.
This is an incredibly fast Blink Dagger from the Axe, and Xantic have already been doing a couple of things around the map even without having this Blink Dagger. FN now can set his sights up towards top lane, because that's the hero that BBC have been very quietly farming away with. Bridon sitting on the power treads, had 1,000 gold. Looks like it's going to be a Void Stone. Yes, a Void Stone for the Necrophos, most likely being built towards a Yule Scepter. Down the line would help him a lot versus the silences and disables of Xantic, but until that happens, he is still very easy pickings, only at about 1,000 HP. If Axe wants to go for that kill, he could very easily get that kill. He's instead going to go down towards the bottom lane. Trying for a Blink call into Massacre won't really do that much with it. So Blink is now revealed to BBC, and it was a rather underwhelming reveal as well.
Yeah, probably should have waited for that second Timber Chain to jump in, but it would have been a little bit definitely sketchy as to whether or not he would have saved ZJK. ZJK with no mana, not able to commit anything to that, and pretty bad RNG as well from FN. Didn't even get a spin-off in that call. So Massacre just fine, and as you mentioned, they do reveal the Blink Dagger. Coil committed top. Illusory Orb is there, but the Repel gonna get off on Levi before the Waning Rift. It is up only for another second, though. Skireth Mage coming in with the Ancient Seal Concussive Shot onto Bridon. Bottling up is Akashi, but he doesn't have quite enough for an orb yet. He's gonna stick up. That will give him enough. He will be able to jaunt back out. Reaper Scythe committed onto HeflaTV. He will be brought down with one last right click from Bridon. Death Pulse will keep him up as well, and Akashi having to back off, so a lot of commitment towards that top lane from BBC. They'll save their Omni Knight and pick off a Skywrath, but this does give a lot of farming space over to LB4E. They're going to run into a Massacre here. They have the waveform available from Bad. He is going to jump forward and look for this kill, and a jump forward dunk from FN will give them the MS to back off as well. And certainly overall, that Skywrath Mage for a Timbersaw, nice trade for LB4E.
Very lucky for the Vengeful Spirit to get out of there alive. Just got to play the dodging game versus the Timber Chains, and Vengeful Spirit was successful in doing so. So she gets to walk away with her life. Axe gets to get another kill, and they're going to jump on the Troll Warlord with a very easy Blink call set up there. Miracle getting caught unawares from that fact. So 5-3, and the Blink Dagger Axe, it was slow to start for sure, but now getting 2 kills, and he's going to be pretty much right where he wants to be. Going to go for that Blade Mail and going to get more damage items down the line. So 5-3, BBC not doing fantastically right now, but still they have yet to really group up and do anything as a team. Still, the Timbersaw has yet to hit his full stride. Lion just hit his level 6, so Finger of Death kill potential is now there. Plus, Bridon hasn't really been doing too much in his game. YapzOr, though, is going to walk into a corner, though. Will get silenced and immediately brought down. No Culling Blade available, no Culling Blade needed. Don't really know what the Lion was doing there, but now he knows at the very least there's an Observer Ward here for the Radiant.
Yeah, FN gonna look to find Bridon as well. He'll just steal up that last creep from him and back him off. Intimidation factor is pretty big now from the Axe with that. Also, those 3 kills coming with that Blink Dagger pickup now, and he will look to garner up with this Blade Mail, a Finger of Death. Mid lane, Ancient Seal, Concussive Shot goes out onto Miracle. He's actually gonna look to man up. He pops his Invisibility rune, but Bad being present as well, not gonna be the most ideal situation. However, smoke from the 2 supports, that's Levi and YapzOr of BBC, and hopefully Bad doesn't overextend for his sake, and it looks like he will back off here. Only 275 HP available to him, and Akashi and FN looking for a kill top lane could find Bridon here. This will be a big one for them to get. The coil is available from Akashi, and he will expend it. Jump forward, call is there. Waning Rift as well from FN. He will have already expended the Death Pulse. Will be dunked down after that Illusory Orb. Massacre a little bit too late to the party, and that extra MS from the Culling Blade going to be able to allow LB4E to disengage.
Man, that was a really brave initiation by the Xantic side because they saw the two supports previously smoke up, and they're just going to go for it anyway. Even though the supports could have been moving up towards the top lane, could have easily saved that Necrophos, they go for it anyway, and they make the right call just because, unfortunately for BBC, fortunately for Xantic, their supports are not near the top lane. Xantic claim a couple kills up towards top as also Timbersaw sticks around for a little bit too long, gets silenced and brought down by a Mystic Flare. So it's going to be 2 kills for Xantic. They're going to maybe lose their Vengeful Spirit, but this is a deep dive. YapzOr has a Finger of Death. He doesn't really want to use it versus the Vengeful Spirit, and he won't have to. Spike forward onto Bad as Miracle with the Haste Rune is going to try to get a lot of distance between him and the rest of the team. YapzOr will try to TP out, will get blown up though before he can make his escape. And Miracle, with the rest of his haste, will get out of there alive, but you don't really want to be diving that deep for a trade. It's very, very risky. Fortunately for BBC, they don't really lose the most, but they still don't take the cleanest engagements either way. 9-4, and Xantic are getting some pretty serious value off of this axe, and at the very least, it's buying time for Morphling to get quite a bit of farm. He's already packing that ultimate orb.
Yeah, good on the Morphling, Bad as well as Akashi to commit to that Lion. I would have expected him to TP out, but they do commit. Waning Rift Orb and the Waveform is more than enough burst to bring him down. Nice Waveform replicate out to the north from Bad is going to be able to extricate himself from a risky situation mid with a Massacre and Miracle encroaching on him. Bottom lane, Levi is here with his level 6 and is holding onto a skill point, is actually opted for that second point of Repel as opposed to the GA, and the full Blade Mail also picked up by FN now, so Levi needs to be careful not to die here as he is looking to eclipse that level 7 mark perhaps for his GA. They do have YapzOr available with a Finger of Death, is yet to use it thus far in this game, and he could find a very juicy target in Akashi's Puck. He'll use the orb to farm and could be very susceptible here, but YapzOr not going to rotate in for a Hex.
Now he's going to go, but it's too late because the call is already there onto Levi. This is a very easy dunk for FN, making a 1-for-1 trade with the Finger of Death being used. Massacre is going to put a lot of damage into FN, but not quite enough because YapzOr is being chased down. FN has another dunk, but Eulscepter will save the Lion for now. Pedrino looking for that Scythe kill. He will have it available, but it won't even be needed. Timbersaw going to kill off the axe in a hurry. Mystic Flare onto Pedrino, though, going to make an even 1-for-1. Mirko is going to come in with the double damage rune, looking for the kill onto the Morphling. Gets swapped out by the Vengeful Spirit, but the Vengeful Spirit's probably going to pay for it with her life. Silence the Troll Warlord, so he can't switch to range, but he will get the kill anyway. Now going to go towards the Scath Mage. Will dodge a waveform actually by backing off, and it looks like he might die to this Arcane Bolt. It's going to be very close. In the meantime, Massacre and YapzOr still fighting their hearts out. It will not be enough. YapzOr dropping very low. Morphling does not have enough to replicate forward towards this Troll Illusion, so YapzOr is going to survive. Overall, BBC take a very slight win in that exchange as they come away with a 2-for-3 lead. Losing Pedrinho, though, it's a pretty costly one for BBC, but Miracle collects and Massacre collects, and that is probably going to make it overall worth it for them.
Yeah, Miracle very lucky to slightly dodge that waveform. Otherwise, it would have been a very nice engagement for LB4E. But as you mentioned, slight edge to them overall in that one. Akashi looking for something bot lane. They're going to find the call. Coil, Waning Rift, easy dunk onto the way of Levi. And FN finding a lot of momentum on this axe despite that last engagement. And 15 minutes in, 12-7 is your score. Concussive shot going to go out mid onto Miracle. He'll be able to back off just fine, though, as it was from long range.
And this Omni Knight, he's not really doing the best. 0-2-2. I haven't really seen too many clutch heals or repels or heal bombs or anything like that. So it's always underwhelming whenever any hero does, that poorly. But when you reserve your second pick, or I guess the first pick stage for that Omni Knight, you expect big impact out of that hero, and he just hasn't really been up to the task. He doesn't even have boots yet. I mean, he's got all the mana he really wants, that Soul Ring, but he's not doing anything, and that's not really good times for BBC. It's pretty much a wasted pick, or a very slow pick for them, so they need to step it up with that Omni Knight. Good thing for them, though, is the fact that YapzOr is getting quite a bit of gold. He's almost had his Blink Dagger, and a Blink Dagger Lion can turn things around, but Xantic, they're moving up towards the north. They're going to find Pedrinho with that Blink Call. Mystic Flare as well. Dunk completely unnecessary, but that's one dead Necrophos, taking no chances. And BBC going to lose yet another hero to this Observer Ward, the Radiant.
Yeah, Massacre is going to rotate in under the cover of an invisibility rune, but little does he know the entire lineup of LB4E is here, so he best not pop that smoke. Is going to look to jump into an Aghanim Scepter build. Only picked up the point booster thus far, though, so is quite a ways off of that, and he's only sitting at level 9, has had to rotate around quite a bit underneath the Tricore of LB4E at this point. Bad is going to build into a Lincoln Sphere, and this is perhaps why they picked the Morphling. Look how good Lincoln Sphere is in this matchup. Only the Lion and the Reaper Scythe are able to pop it against Bad, and he'll be pretty much impossible to kill with a defensive replicate up in most of these fights.
you don't really want to use any of those skills to pop a Lincoln Sphere. You want your stun to land from the spike. You need that Hex. Mana Drain is the best case scenario there for BBC to get rid of the Lincoln Sphere, but sometimes you just have to blink Hex, otherwise the enemy is going to get away. So it's going to be pretty much the perfect defensive item in this game for Bad, a very clear choice for him, and he's going to be roaming around with the rest of his team under cover of smoke, which was probably not revealed to BBC. They are very grouped up, BBC. They have the Guardian Angel ready, but with a blinking axe and a blinking puck, Guardian Angel can only do so much. Miracle in the meantime is going into the Roshan pit by himself. FN is going to be privy to this fact though. Miracle is going to get blink called. Roshan even helping out there as well. Mystic Flare is going to mean the death of the Troll Warlord. That's one down for Xantic. Here comes Bridon off to the side, thinking about going in. Roshan is going to be very slowly killed off by Xantic. They don't have many good Roshan heroes. The Vengeful Spirit's pretty decent, but she really isn't a part of this Roshan attempt, at least not yet. There's some minus armor right there. BBC, do they actually want to fight this? This is probably where Massacre is at his weakest. There aren't many trees to maneuver around with. There's not much of that, and FN's going to make the jump for him. Dual Scepter onto the axe, though. Massacre is still taking a lot of damage. Dunk is going to miss. Massacre, though, still in a lot of trouble. Will probably go down here in the end. Padrino also silenced. He's going to try to turn around for a Scythe, and someone will find it. With the Guardian Angel, will survive thereafter. Now with the Sadist charge, is going to get right back up to fightable amounts of HP. Finger Death onto Bad. They'll kill off the Morphling as well. Levi and Zapsor, though, going to get called by FN. He's back, and he's going to do a little bit of damage, but no spins just yet. Now he's completely out of mana. Padrino still alive among all of this one. He's going to get purified one more time. Now going to try to go towards Akashi. Has his phase shift. He will be forced to use it, but Dual Scepter shortly thereafter. He's going to land straight into a spike. He'll actually dodge the spike because it missed from Yapsor, but it doesn't matter because of the battle trance. They'll get the kill anyway, and Xantic somehow don't end up taking an edge over BBC in that fight, mostly because of that clutch Guardian Angel right after Padrino got the kill. So he got the Sadist charges, and he was able to protect that health with that GA.
Yeah, unbelievable timing from BBC. I don't know how LB4E loses that engagement without the Troll Warlord. Massacre able to make it away beyond the tree line and TP away. Blink forward from Yapsor. He's going to find the Hex onto FN. Drain most of his mana as well. Blade Mail will be popped here, but Axe should be able to blink out just fine. Either way, that is a huge swing for BBC after what looked like perhaps a pivotal point in the game for LB4E to take a significant lead.
Man, it's not where Massacre wants to fight as a Timbersaw. It's a really messed up initiation, as Timbersaw was the first one to get jumped on, and well, he didn't last for very long, and he was dropped very low very quickly, yet BBC somehow still make that happen, and not only do they win the team fight, following that team fight they go right back into the Roshan pit, and Miracle finishes up the Roshan that he worked so hard to get. So it's pretty much Xantic serving themselves onto a silver platter for BBC to eat, and Troll Warlord also gets his dessert in that Aegis. So it's a pretty huge win, honestly, for BBC, and it's first showing of Guardian Angel. It's going to, that's not the right button, going to put the advantage out of the hands of Xantic. It wasn't really that large to begin with, only a 1,500 gold lead for them, but now the experience and gold is starting to bend towards the BBC side, and they have some pretty serious late game heroes. The Axe, the Puck, they're eventually going to slowly decline in power, so they have to continue onwards with this aggressive playstyle, or they have to get more reliance, more farm with this Morphling, and so far that's not really happening. Morphling is falling behind Padrino, and Necrophos is inherently a good counter to that Morphling.
Yeah, definitely so, and that slowed his Lincoln's progression, but he'll finish that off now, and as we mentioned, it's a very good item, so perhaps we'll allow him to fight a little bit more effectively hereafter, and it looks like Ajitave will be able to back out of any danger bottom lane, and some nice items coming out for BBC, however, Soul Booster and the Soul Ring available for Massacre. He'll opt for the Bloodstone as opposed to that Aghanims. A little bit of an interesting choice here, considering all the things there are to deal with him, but we'll see if he's able to find some momentum with that Bloodstone. They are going to take this tier 1 unabated bottom.
There's no chance that Xantic want to defend this, and it's a very small chance that they actually want to defend the tier 2. If BBC want to go for this tier 2, it will most likely just be Xantic up towards top lane trying to make a trade, and I think that's fine for BBC just because they will have some more tower gold to work with, and they need the gold a lot more than Xantic do right now, so making the trade seems like the right call, and hell, even if there is a team fight to break out, there's Guardian Angel on Levi. Assuming he doesn't get called or silenced or coiled or something, then he'll be able to get a lot of skills off and give BBC a lot of extra survivability. Regardless, tower is fortifiable for the Radiant, but it's also being pushed a lot faster than that of the Dire. Akashi is in the area, ready with the blinking coil, but man, you don't really want to jump onto Miracle with an Aegis with Omnite backup, unless you have your Axe here, and Axe still has yet to TP back, so this is going to be probably even tower trades. It's going going to be Absorb, blinking forward, looking for something. Not going to get too much. Miracle dropping down to half HP, but here comes a Timber Saw. Timber Chain through everyone. Almost going to instantly kill off that Venge, and now with the Scythe, they will get the kill. Miracle is very low on HP, but he has the Aegis. He doesn't really care. Mystic Flare into Mass Carry going to do next to nothing. Call forward from FN. Also not going to do too much. Agisabe is going to be bashed down by Miracle. Now going to change his targets towards the Axe. Blended down by the Timber Saw. Morphling, having no part in that fight, is going to try to race the entirety of BBC. That is not going to happen, Morphling. Maybe he gets a tier 3 tower, maybe, but it's going to cost him his Raxes. BBC take a decisive fight on the bottom lane. It's going to result into big gains for them. They might even walk away with a set of Raxes.
Yeah, that's a huge engagement for them, and after picking up your Lincoln Sphere, not fighting in that engagement, certainly a little bit questionable of a decision coming out from Bad. And the entire lineup there. Great setup at the start from Massacre, jumping through the entire lineup. Interestingly enough, they use the Scythe on ZJK as opposed to the puck, but they bring down the puck regardless. And as you mentioned, free lane of Rax going the way of BBC, and all of a sudden, a game that looked like it was slightly in the hands of LB4E is handily in the favor of BBC.
And they also have the late game edge. It's not necessarily the late game kicking in, as it's only 23 minutes. It was pretty much at initiation with Massacre. You won't really expect a Timbersaw to be making that sort of initiation, but by the time he actually got in there, the angle was perfect on the tree that he targeted. Got a Timber Chain, whirling death through pretty much everyone with a Chakram to follow up. That's going to give him 8 Bloodstone charges, and the rest of his team was able to capitalize perfectly thereafter. It's actually probably a good thing that Bad wasn't in that fight, just because only with the Lincoln Sphere he wouldn't be able to do too much, given the circumstances there. He's actually going to get into a fight now. Purify's going to do a lot of damage. Whirling Death as well. Bad needs to get the hell out of here. Has to swap out from the Vengeful Spirit, but now here comes FN. Finger Death's going to kill off the Venge. FN's going to be bashed down by Miracle, taking pretty much no damage. Has the Aegis as well. Miracle is going to take no damage, in fact, from the Mystic Flare because of the Repel. FN is going to take a fall as Massacre comes in to clean up one. Now going to look for more. Akashi drops a 3-man coil, but it's mostly going to be defensive. Miracle is going to snap that one. Will get purified though, so he can continue the chase as Massacre is not affected by that coil. He's going to chase for it as well. Akashi going to get dropped into the Chakra Room. No, not quite, but the Urn Charge should do it. Akashi going to fall as Miracle is going to clean up the Scarith Mage. Now going towards Morphling. Was maimed up, but Patrol Warlord not quite with enough to continue this chase. Will fall back. BBC not even having Padrinho in any part of that fight, with most of the heroes stalled up by the coil, yet just Massacre and Miracle chasing down all of the Radiant side is going to lead to a very similar fight to what we just saw over in the bottom lane, except this time it's over in the mid lane, and this time it also has another tier 2 tower to take. Morphling and Vengeful Spirit cannot hold this on their own. They need the Axe here.
Yeah, and FN falling there, a very big deal. Miracle chasing super deep. They will get the Scythe off onto the Morphling as well, and Bad goes down, and that's perhaps because of lag, but it could just be a rage quit at this point. And yeah, Agisabe gonna call it there, and a rage quit coming out from Xantic. But either way, BBC asserting their dominance in this second group stage, 3-0 thus far.
And it's always a little bit disappointing to see people rage out of the game. That being said, though, Xantic, we're in such a great position for such a large majority of the game, but you can see the huge dive in the net worth. It's from 2,000 all the way down to, well, I guess negative 12,000 if you're talking about Xantic's advantage. They had pretty good control of the game. They had a pretty farmed Axe. Their Morphling was getting a lot as well. All it took was, I think, that fight on the bottom lane. That was really what changed everything for them. Or actually, even moving back a little bit more, the fight in Roshan was really what set things back for Xantic. So BBC, one way or another, are going to claim victory over the Xantic side. Little Busters are going to take their first loss here in the final group, and that is going to mean that this game is down and out. BBC going to claim the victory. We are not done yet for today, guys. There is one more game, basically unknown, going to be going up against Little Busters in, oh my god, 50 minutes. I don't know what I'm going to do till then, but who knows. That's going to be coming up in 50. I'm Mike Loris, and I've been joined by MRP Dota. You can follow us at Mike Loris, at MRP_Dota. It's all in the title. Be sure to follow HeflaTV on Twitter and Facebook as well, guys. But for right now, we're done. We'll be back in about 50. Any final words before the break?
Yeah, Bridon been littered with some stomps, so we had quite a few delays in between games, but it will be certainly a good one, and basically unknown, looking to cling to hopes to come and catch up with BBC for tomorrow. So still a lot of Bridon to be played, guys. Be sure to check us out for that final game.
All right, guys, we'll be back in about 50. See you then.